The United States Border Patrol has exciting and rewarding career opportunities with the nation's largest law enforcement organization. Border Patrol agents enjoy great pay, outstanding federal benefits, and up to $20,000 in recruitment incentives for newly appointed agents. If you are looking for a way to serve something greater than yourself, consider the United States Border Patrol. Learn more online at cbp.gov/careers/USBP. That's cbp.gov/careers/USBP.
Before we begin, I wanted to give a huge shout out to the folks at Amazon Music for partnering with us on this episode of the Inside Line F1 podcast. But more on this later. Right then, let's get right into today's episode. Ladies and gentlemen, it is all over and done with. At last, we can all take a deep breath and settle in. The pain and torture of watching Max Verstappen dominate Formula 1 is over. But in Formula 1.5, we have a new Constructors' Championship by only a couple of points here and there. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Mercedes. That was a race, Kunal. I mean, okay, straight up for everyone listening in. We are not talking about Formula 1 here, very clearly, because Formula 1 hasn't existed for the last 12 months. But bloody hell, Formula 1.5, Kunal, that was a title fight. Literally, if you had to genuinely exclude Verstappen out of it, can you imagine a title fight decided by one driver, letting the other one go past, and hoping that a penalty to them will allow them to pip their main rivals? That is a great title finish.
That's incredible, right? Can you imagine? Singapore was the only race where we actually had a Formula 1 race where everybody participated. We don't just say this because Max didn't win. By the way, Max has taken Formula 1 so far away from everybody with his dominance and his display this season that even if others have been paying to participate in Formula 1, they have been relegated to Formula 1.5. That's what Sommel says. So for all the Dutch fans listening in, we love what Max is doing. Absolutely. 1,000 laps that he's led in 23. But we have to look down the field because that's literally where the action, the entertainment, the talking point, all of that is, right? Sundaram, what's your pick? Is it Formula 1? Is it Formula 1.5?
Formula 1.5 has been the theme of the day. So let's talk about that and kind of give credit to the other teams that made the season a little bit bearable, exciting to a certain extent. Otherwise, it would have been a lot more boring than it probably seems like. But yeah, lots of interesting battles, which we totally relished.
Yeah, but wait, before we go to that, Sundaram, you mentioned a very interesting stat right before we went on air. Max could have won 18 races in a row had it not been for Singapore. Before we get to Formula 1.5 proper, let's just put that into context, right? I think the most amount of wins that Lewis Hamilton ever had in a season was 13, wasn't it? No, well, that's Sebastian Vettel. Hamilton had less. Hamilton had 10. What is this guy? I mean, seriously, let's just put it out there and finish it off. I know for all the Max fans right here, even they're tired because when we had our event at Car Social today, which by the way was such a roaring success, and for all of you listening in, thank you for showing up there. But when we had that event over there, everyone just did not want to talk about Max. But we should for only 1 second. 19 wins, Sundaram. It doesn't add up to me. Seriously.
When these records were first set by the likes of Alan Prost and Michael Schumacher, and it always seemed that it would never be broken. And Michael's always said that records are meant to be broken. And then Hamilton broke them. And Verstappen's taken them so far that thought comes to your mind once again. Can anyone actually beat this? Sure, we're going to see more races in Formula 1, 25 races, 24 races and all. But it's going to be extremely difficult for a driver to lead 1,000 Grand Prix laps, not even considering sprint laps. 1,000 Grand Prix laps, 19 race wins. It's incredible. It's only going to take some mega prodigy who's probably going to come and break this. But yeah, it looks very, very unbeatable in my opinion.
Or, while I was growing up, I used to wonder, why can't we just have a Formula 1 race every weekend? There are 52 weekends in the year.
On.
Just get on with it and have 52 race weekends. It was when I was growing up, I was aspiring to drive in Formula 1, now that I'm working in Formula One, I will not tell you what my ideal number of races are because I don't know. But yeah, if there were 52 races, then somebody could come and win 19 or whatever. But yeah, incredible driving. Max Verstappen, he also extended this record, 9 consecutive race wins from pole for the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, which, by the way, we should do a rate the race conversation.
Yes,
We are rating Max Verstappen. Yeah, we are rating Max Verstappen. Great drive, great whatever, dominant, etc. We didn't expect anything less. Let's do one thing. Let's rate the race and then let's discuss the most important thing. There was Donut Gate that happened post-race. I want to talk about that just
Donut
after
Gate.
we rate. Yes, there was Donut Gate. Yes, we'll talk about it. But I'm going to start rating the race. If ever there was a finale that Formula One did not need, it was this.
One second.
Third
One
radio
second.
message.
What do you? 1 second. If for a finale, that are you talking about the entire race as a whole?
I'm talking to the entire race as a whole. Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
the Las Vegas Grand Prix was, where it should have just ended on a high. Greatest of entertainment, great on-track battles, and then done. Okay. The Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, my goodness, till the last 2 laps, till whatever happened with Leclerc and Perez and George Russell, and then with Tsunoda and with Lewis Hamilton, was the only thing that spiced things up. I'm telling you, literally every third radio message was using the words tire management. People were laughing. Then Carlos Sainz's engineer said, we are waiting for the safety car to pit. But that's what they do when you have a tire management race. You wait to see if there are interruptions you can make fun of. So I think it was a really boring end to the race. This is not the momentum I want to take into the winter season. But now we're forced to do that.
At least we get a break, which is honestly, I think, let's be honest, at this stage, everyone is tired. Everyone, the fans are tired, the drivers are tired, the people working in the sport are tired, the broadcasters are tired. I think even Max at some point has to be tired of winning so much. It's a well-needed 100-day break. Hopefully McLaren comes back in. But on the subject of time management, it's interesting because when we have all this stuff, maybe one fine day Formula One and the bosses will say, Pirelli, hey, we don't want any tire management anymore. And Pirelli will stupidly come up with a compound that's too, let's say, feeble in a way. And what we end up getting is more 6-stop races like we had in 2013. And that's also not the solution. One second before we go to all the drivers and talk about them. Gents, what do you think needs to change for 24, generally from the sports perspective? Because we can talk about all the stories in this race until the cows come home. But what do we want to see different from 2024, generally? We can start off with you, Sundar.
No. Wait. You guys haven't rated the race yet. So
I think the tone in both of our voices says it's a solid slap bang 4 out of 10, isn't it?
Yeah, but you also said we get a break. Who said we're getting a break? We've got Franz Tost coming. We got Otmar Safnauer coming. We're going to have a pre-season event to plan for. We've got F1 in schools coming. We've got Daryl Goodrich from the Braun GP coming. Who said you need a break after Abu Dhabi? Yes, but I don't think we are getting a break from Formula One in the off season.
We're getting a break from Verstappen being in P1 for a while, at least for 100 days. And that I'm so glad to see. But no, genuinely, Kunal, we'll start with you on this one. What would you like to see different from the sport before we talk about all the quirky stories from this race? Because genuinely, there were a few.
I don't think I want to change anything. What we've seen, and everybody's going to say this, as the rule, as an era prolongs or as an era goes by in Formula One, convergence happens. Teams get closer. Saturdays are incredibly close as well. Red Bull stopped developing the RB19 since July or August, since the summer break. Yeah. We don't know if it was before the summer break or after the summer break, because that in itself is 4 weeks of development, right? I'm excited to see what RB20 is going to be like. And, if Mercedes is going to have a W15, which is again going to go to the bin or not. So I don't want to change anything. Let them figure it out. But yeah, okay, if there's one thing I want to change, I want to have drivers being able to do donuts. Because like I said, we had Donut Gate in Abu Dhabi. And I don't like it when my donuts are not served.
Donut Gate is a bit shit. Let's get to that in a second. But what do you think about this, Sundaram? It's a fun little place to be, right? Because we were all crying out loud for a budget cap. Now that the budget cap is here, Nobody can catch up because of the budget cap. I don't think that's the thing that should be changed ideally. But in all honesty, I think really I'm so confused about how structurally we can get championship battles to happen. It's been 2 years now. If, God forbid, 2024 is also going to be somewhat similar, where teams cannot catch up to Red Bull because simply they're hindered by the budget cap, maybe it'll be a decent time for us to reevaluate the structure of the sport. Because as you rightly mentioned earlier on, Kunal, it seems like teams are not hungry anymore because they don't have to finish higher up in the table to survive. Yes, it means that we get to see more healthy businesses and more safe jobs. But in terms of a racing spectacle, which is why, by the way, we folks are all here, it kills the hunger because the stomachs are already full. What do you reckon, Sundaram?
Absolutely. And the one thing, I mean, this is my long-term request or long-term wish from Formula One. Back in 2010, we had 4 drivers fighting for the championship in the season finale. 4 different drivers from 3 different teams. I want to see Formula One go back to that stage where we have 3 different constructors fighting it out for the championship. If not for the in the finale, but generally in the championship. I genuinely want to see teams like Mercedes, Ferrari right up there. And that's eventually the end goal, in my opinion. The sprints are not the problem. There's no problem with sprints. So don't put all your focus over there. Try to get better racing on Sundays. That's the number one thing. And it's a lot more easier said than done. Surely it's going to take a couple of years. Maybe 2024 and 2025 are going to be similar to how it was this year. But one thing probably that can genuinely be fixed maybe is better stewarding and better application of rules and penalties. That is one thing I think has to be improved.
Why don't we do this? We'll invite a guest we had earlier on in the season, Craig Scarborough, who we all know from F1 TV Tech Talk. He is best equipped to tell us what could Formula One do to have more closer battles. Although we don't want it to be manufactured. We want it to be on merit.
Yeah.
And I feel this is a very heavy conversation for Abu Dhabi review when, by the way, there were so many stories that came up from the race weekend. Donut Gate, I know I've been saying it since the last 11 minutes. What happened is F1 actually said top 3 drivers could do donuts on the start-finish straight post-race. They said that. It was an official document that came out. Okay. Then what happened is Charles Leclerc, he asked, seriously, can I do donuts? Negative, you can't do donuts. Fernando Alonso, George Russell, Alexander Albon, all of them asked if they could do donuts. Alex Albon was actually told by James Vowell that our 7th place in the Constructors' Championship is thanks to your hard work this season. Thank you. And he said, thank you. Yeah, but hey, now can I do donuts? He was like a child. This is what my daughter does. Suddenly when she thinks she's done something good, she's like, Papa, now can I have olives? Her favorite thing instead of having some candies or whatever, right? And everybody was told to not do donuts. Now, there could be 2 reasons for this. First is they don't believe they had a season worth celebrating enough. That could be one of the reasons. I don't think we've had a great season, guys. No donuts. Or second, which is more obvious, is they're just saving the engine for the post-season tests that are to happen in Abu Dhabi from Tuesday. Because at the end of the day, if imagine you're not going to use a new engine or a new power unit in the test. You will reuse your quota from the season because it costs money. It's all under the budget cap, etc. Right? You don't want to suddenly have the whole team, all your drivers show up, stay back in Abu Dhabi, do a test, which nobody's interested in, and then suddenly blowing up engines because your driver wanted to do donuts. So I guess that's just the reason.
If only. It would have been cool. Donuts, maybe the championship trophy being awarded at that moment in time. Yeah, that would have been cool, no, Sundaram? But it is what it is, I suppose.
Yeah, I just vaguely remember. I think, didn't we have this directive last year as well that I think it came from Formula One that you're not supposed to do donuts. And I think that's also the question. You see, if teams are really preserving on their components and engines for the postseason test, I kind of get it. Why is this a directive from Formula One itself that you're not supposed to do donuts?
And who did donuts? Mick Schumacher did donuts only to be told off by Gunther Steiner, I remember. And I think Max was the only one who could do donuts because he was like, dude, I'm Max Verstappen. I'm a 3-time world champion. I tell Red Bull I want to pit and they pit. I tell Red Bull pit Checo and they pit. So I tell Red Bull and I tell Formula One I'm doing donuts, or hey, I just do the donuts, and then they figured out I've done donuts.
Or maybe I
just the
touch
way
a rear
Max-
wing of a car and I get a 50,000 euro fine and I don't even care about it. That's the sort of thing Max does.
Yeah. Or I just overtake in the pit lane exit in FP2 in that tunnel in Abu Dhabi, and then they turn around and remind everybody no overtaking in the pit lane. You know, Max
or
is
I end up
sometimes just
dominating a
challenged.
win, or I end up dominating a race without even doing FP1, and I just don't care about it. That's how good he's been this year, right?
And I get replaced in FP1 by a rookie, and I still win the race. That's what Max did.
Exactly.
This is Max Verstappen dominating. And, you know, sometimes Max Verstappen has just challenged my knowledge of Formula One and the rule book. You know, when he did the pit lane thing, he's been doing it since a couple of races now. I'm like, is that even allowed? Hey, I'm sure he's, if Max is doing it, it's allowed. Now you have to ask the reverse question. If Max has done it, is it actually allowed? And will the stewards then be reminded the next race that, oh, by the way, he's not supposed to do that? And any Logan Sargent fans in the house here?
Awkward silence.
I guess.
Nice.
I guess no.
Nice.
Okay.
I like that. I really like that. That speaks volumes. The fact that nobody said anything. Nobody was saying.
So, Logan Sargent was inadvertently confirmed as a Williams driver for 2024. All our listeners in United States of America, assuming that y'all are Logan Sargent fans. Williams actually told him post-race, good drive, blah, 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 lots to work on winter, and look forward to more next year. Okay. So either the engineer was just used to saying it to whichever driver he has worked on all these years, or the engineer just let it slip by. I think it's the latter. What do you guys think?
I think it's the latter. I think he's going to keep his seat for next year.
I mean, seriously,
Surely
where else do you go? Where else do you go? All I'm going to say is if they have as much ambition, Williams probably won't keep him. But clearly, it tells you more about where they're going to be in that regard. But we should also talk about more on the racing because, yes, we had these things. But on the track as well on Sunday, there was so much madness, including what Leclerc did, why that happened, why Fernando Alonso eventually got P4 over him in the championship. More on McLaren, and there are a few micro stories that we need to track for 2024 as well. And also what we think of Yuki Tsunoda's race. Because he clearly was the driver of the day. Do we all agree, guys? Driver of the day, for sure? Yes?
Absolutely.
What do you think, Sundaram? Surely, right?
Yes.
There's no...
Yes.
He led 5 laps. He's done an Antonio Giovinazzi. I love it. But we're going to discuss all of that and more after a short break. After a short break. So be right here, folks. We'll be back.
Listen to the latest episodes on Amazon Music, included with your Prime membership.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Inside Line F1 podcast. Now, we haven't quite introduced ourselves yet. My name is Somal Arora. I'm the... I butchered my name very quickly. My name is Somal Arora. Yes, that's how you say it. I am the voice of the MotoGP, Indian GP, and also of the Indian Racing League. Joined, of course, by 2 very, very special guests for the last race review of the year. We've got Kunal Shah, the former marketing head of the Force India Formula One team and an FIA-accredited F1 journalist for the Viaplay network in Norway. And also, F1 Stats Guru Sundaram, part of the WTF1 content creators pool, and whose stats have been read out by Crofty so many times on the broadcast. It's not even funny anymore. But, okay, where do we go to, folks? Very, very quickly. I think we should start with Leclerc and Alonso. 2 different drivers with different stories. But eventually we saw Fernando Alonso in his 3rd Formula One season take P3 in F1.5. I feel genuinely that's an achievement. But talk about the margins, Kunal. Imagine P3 in the Drivers' Championship being settled by the most number of P3s in the races. That is, honestly, Formula One is in a good space right now if we just take Max away. Such a close battle. I don't remember for a long time actually for P3, genuinely.
Yeah, and Fernando Alonso going through Fernando Alonso things. But, he drove a fairly interesting race to 7th, I would say. The usual Aston Martin wasn't really flying in or anything. They were just there. And the most fun thing that Fernando Alonso actually had, he had a moment with Max Verstappen. They both were interviewing each other after the race. It was on Viaplay. It's all over the social media. Go and check it out. But the most fun thing when Fernando Alonso he asked saying, "Can I do a donut?" And they said, "No, Fernando, absolutely not." he had the funniest answer. He said, I actually did my donut on lap 1 in Las Vegas last Sunday or last Saturday.
At least man's got humor. But for Alonso, we'll do like a proper season review later. But I find it interesting how Leclerc eventually finally got... I mean, it's kind of strange that he's ended up in P5 in the original championship all the way through. But even then, we need to talk about what he's done. Because I find it amazing that both the Ferrari drivers, now officially Leclerc as well, have taken matters into their own hands. They no longer depend on the team. They'll come up with wise solutions in the middle of the race. And yes, initially we thought Leclerc was the more submissive one. We remember Monaco 22 as being a shining example of him following the team and doing what they say. But I like that Sundaram, now he's taking matters into his own hands. And he didn't get Ferrari's approval, but he still let Perez go. Shame it didn't work out, but I like what I see for 2024. He's realized that if there's anyone who's got to take matters in their own hands, it's got to be me. And that is a fun story to follow for next year.
I hope that's not the case for next year. I hope they only have to focus on the driving. But, I mean, kudos to Leclerc for doing that. Great presence of mind, that too in the final stages of the race. Because, I mean, in all honesty, I always thought that Ferrari could beat Mercedes by probably doing a different tire strategy or something of that sort. But Leclerc coming out with this sort of a tactic towards the end of the race, letting Perez get by. I mean, quite honestly, that would have meant Ferrari would have been ahead of Mercedes in the championship, probably 10 to 12 million more in the kitty in terms of development, which is great. Unfortunately, Sainz wasn't there in the mix. If he was there, I think it would have given them a few extra points, but unfortunately, yeah, he started from 16th. But I genuinely hope that the drivers don't have to take things into their hands next year, and the strategy team is able to come up with these things from their side themselves.
But the drivers already have things in their hands. They're the ones driving the cars. The funny thing, and I'm just joking, of course. The funny thing is that Carlos Sainz did a hard, so he committed to a 2-stop, and then he retired from the race, which most of us missed, because Ferrari again would have realized, hey, P2 is not coming. Let's just call it off and go. So unless there was a genuine problem, which we'll never know. But I think Charles was very impressive in the way he showed, what he wanted to do. It was very cheeky, very un-Charles-like, I would say. It was very Carlos Sainz-like. That's what we all assumed and we thought. But here's the fun part. George Russell was thorn in the fish, right? George Russell actually was behind the two McLaren cars at the start. And then he, of course, overtook Oscar Piastri. And Oscar Piastri, clearly, every time we go to a race where there's tire management, he just drops back. He qualifies well and then he drops back. And that's the progression. Like we've said, Somil has explained before, we are just going to keep tracking that progression, right? But McLaren, a team that has 2 sub-2 second stops, actually had a 5-second stop on Lando Norris. And then Lando Norris lost track position to George Russell in the pits, and then he never recovered from that. So George suddenly had a boost of points. So McLaren inadvertently helped Mercedes finish ahead of Ferrari in the Constructors' Championship, because we saw Lewis was struggling, he was battling, etc., etc. And then Lando Norris, since we are on that, we have to ask the question, when is he going to stop making mistakes under pressure? Is that the progression we will see him make in the coming season? Because we've seen Max Verstappen do it several times before. We've seen Sebastian Vettel do it. Is it now Lando Norris's time to sort of iron out these mistakes? And I also like what, McLaren came out and said post-qualifying, that maybe the developments of the car that we made to try and catch Red Bull have made the car a little undrivable in places, forcing driver errors. So they are backing their drivers as well, like they should. They get 2 great drivers, don't they?
No, because in that sense, whenever Lando does bottle it, you then look towards where Oscar finishes, and you tend to compare the results in that sense. And Oscar, in that sense, has been keeping it very clean. So that's why people tend to appreciate Oscar being able to do well, despite Lando kind of bottling it in certain situations. That only makes Oscar look better, is what I'm trying to say. And this is something that we're definitely going to track throughout 2024 as well. Because we've discussed this before as well. The chances are very far and few that McLaren can really put their car on pole or even win a race. And when that opportunity does arise, Lando has to keep it together and take it with both hands. Let's see how it happens in 24.
And not just this race, we saw Qatar as well being one shining example of that. One might say, had there been a better start, I think it was a sprint race in Brazil, right? I think that could have been another opportunity for them too. Track position being the potential advantage there. But that's on McLaren. What are we going to track next for Alpine? I think with Alpine, it's going to be so hard to go in the future, but we're trying to do that with Otmar Safnauer, who's going to come on the podcast very quickly. And we're really going to throw a few direct questions at him. Like, quite simply, why are Alpine where they are? We need to talk about where they are because this was a typical Alpine race for Pierre Gasly. We couldn't quite hear the depths of his furiousness, but apparently he was going crazy. We saw that clash with Lewis Hamilton at the start. We saw that move with Sergio Perez as well. Really, really a terrible race for him. But on that front, on that Perez clash, that reminds me, now that we've come here, he got a 5-second penalty for what he did to Lando Norris. Correct. Okay, we all agree it's a fair one. I know I'm a Fernando Alonso fan.
No, I don't think it's a fair one. I think it was a racing incident. That's what Formula One needs to change.
Oh, wait, one second. Am I getting... Yes, I mean, see, that wasn't too aggressive. Generally, yeah. Perez on them... No, surely that can't be a penalty, right? I got confused with the accidents initially.
Perez on Norris should have just been treated as a racing incident.
Yeah.
Yes, Perez went in deep, braked, etc. But Norris also turned in. Norris could have waited for him, whatever. But it's a racing. Norris didn't turn him on purpose, etc. Whatever. I think. But this is the third consecutive race that Perez has actually lost a position in, not on the last lap in Abu Dhabi, but in the closing stages of the race, because Brazil happened, Las Vegas happened, and now this happened. And, anyway, Perez finishing ahead would have helped Red Bull and Ferrari and Ferrari and Mercedes in P2 in the Drivers' Championship as well. Because I clearly don't think that was a racing incident.
Yeah, now that you look back at the replays, it feels like it's a little inconsistent. Let's put it that way. I mean, the way it's all worked out, it was pivotal to the way the championship also panned out at the very, very end too. It's interesting how that's played out. But on that subject, if Perez gets a 5-second penalty for that, I honestly don't understand why Alonso doesn't get a penalty for a brake check, which is the most unsporting and dangerous thing you can do. Even though I'm a Fernando Alonso fan openly, I don't think that is a sporting thing to do, Sundaram, in any way whatsoever. Yes, it didn't result in anything crazy, but that brake check was just... It can be passed off as naughty, but it can be far, far worse than that as well.
Isn't that typical Fernando? But isn't he naughty? Isn't he trying to be a little smart on track? But I just want to go back to that. Did he actually brake test Lewis?
He admitted to it. He said it's just what you have to do.
Really? I must have missed that. If he said that, that's just that's not fair. I mean, I still remember Fernando Alonso had brake tested David Coulthard in the early 2020s. No, early 2000s. It was in Imola or something, braking for the chicane. But anyway,
and he said that it was a repeat of. He said, sorry, it was a repeat of Canada 2013, and in both cases, I won. That's the exact wording of Fernando Alonso on the brake check. He said he admitted to wanting to get Hamilton away from the DRS range. Honestly, it bugs me. It bugs me because, yes, Formula One cars are super safe, but you never know what the result of a brake check is going to be. It comes across to be, honestly, it comes across to me as being slightly frivolous and being not bothered about what the potential outcomes can be. I'm talking like an uncle right now, but it's true. It's a brake check. It is the most unsporting thing you can do as a driver, Kunal.
Oh yeah. It's unsporting. It's dangerous. It's unwanted. It's all of that. I'm expecting this to carry forward into the winter. There will be conversations around this because it was clear from the onboards as well. You could see it. But, the FIA, maybe this is where the FIA's consistency needs to come in because brake checking should just not be allowed, come what may. But the FIA, again, they had AI for the first time checking track limits. And I think it was Logan Sargent and Checo Perez who were the clear victims. I mean, Perez has been victim of track limits every time in qualifying. Logan Sargent, again. His average qualifying position is actually lower than Nick DeVries's position, just so y'all know. But just Logan Sargent things, I guess. But, Another thing we should talk about, what will happen to the cars now, because we spoke of the postseason test on Tuesday. So the cars will, last till then. They'll go back to the factories. They'll literally break down every component, strip the cars apart. They will put aside components that will be carry forwarded. They will run stress tests on these cars. Some cars will make it to the museum. The power units go to the power unit department, or if you're a customer team, go back to your power unit supplier. And then you just see what learnings and what you can do to build the 2024 car, I guess. And some of them, after 5 years or 10 years or 15 years, will make it to a Sotheby's auction, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting now. The postseason test is also going to come about. That could also reveal a few things here and there. I think we should then also go off and talk a little bit more about Yuki Tsunoda. I think last thing to touch upon, we're all glad to see the way things are going. He's led a few laps, which is incredible to see. We had one person actually at our race screening event at Car Social in Mumbai talk about this. He said, I think Yuki Tsunoda is the most overrated driver, he said, something along those lines. And immediately afterwards, Tsunoda went out there and proved him wrong in a way, which is genuinely great to see, because I think we all doubted why he's getting another chance in Formula One. The progression is great to see, but just what went wrong, Sundaram? One stopper, clearly AlphaTauri just, I feel, at least what it looks like from all the news reports, it seems like their tyre wear went in bad afterwards and they just couldn't keep up, unfortunately.
Now, you mentioned a while ago that Tsunoda's done a Giovinazzi, and that's actually true. I mean, a little bit of context setting over here. Giovinazzi actually has led more laps around Singapore than Max Verstappen. Similarly, Yuki Tsunoda has led more laps around Abu Dhabi than Fernando Alonso and Charles Leclerc combined. 5 laps for him and 3 for Alonso and 2 for Leclerc. So yes, that's a stat I'm going to use for next year, definitely. But yeah, a very interesting race for Tsunoda and a great farewell for Franz Tost. Last race with the team, Yuki Tsunoda leads 5 laps. I think the first time that they've led laps since Italy 2020. And a bunch of points as well. They got very, very close to Williams in the constructors as well. It would have been almost P7. But yes, they stuck to a one-stopper. When in fact, when they did have the opportunity to do a 2-stopper, and that kind of didn't work in their favor. But yeah, where did they finish? P8. P8 is not bad.
Yeah. Especially when you consider how it started off with their car. And another story to track is going to be how they fare next year, no, Sundaram? The way they've picked up at certain places. P4 in Mexico in qualifying, couple of good results. P6 for Tsunoda here. It's just getting better.
No, it has been getting better, but it has been exponentially getting better, because this team, if I remember correctly, they had scored only 5 points in the first 17 races of this season. And in the last 5 races, they have literally taken 20 points, jumped from P10 in the constructors to P8. So definitely in the last couple of races, things have improved. It's not just the Ricciardo factor, but generally upgrades have worked for them. And Yuki has been doing exceptional. I would say he's been doing a lot better than his previous season. Sure, there's been a lot of question marks about this probably being his last season in F1 or with AlphaTauri, but he's genuinely done better and put that team or put that car in situations where it would have been otherwise difficult. So a good season for Yuki, I would say, and hoping next year is better.
And so AlphaTauri has also picked up pace because they're taking on more components from Red Bull. The most important thing, they're going to take this, or they have taken the suspension as well. So clearly they've suddenly had this spike in performance that's there, because they've, literally Red Bull's RB19 is what everybody wants to have. And AlphaTauri, for them, it's the easiest to have it legally, I mean to say, right? But I'm a little disappointed. They should have just done what everybody was doing, done a 2-stopper, trusted their car and the deg rates that they had, and just managed to probably score a few points, because there was that one position they were just going equal or 1 point less than Williams, and they were just lucky that Williams actually didn't score. But that's just me saying what I probably think of. But Abu Dhabi, the most expensive circuit in the world, the one that we will remember for Ferrari World and for 2021 more than anything else, it's become one race old, had a new podium this weekend. It's mimicked upon the Monza podium. Frankly, I completely missed it. It didn't make any sense to me. Or it didn't hit me that it's a new podium. Maybe because they didn't open the gates like Monza does for the fans. Or maybe they did open the gates and there weren't too many fans. One doesn't know. But what did you guys think of the podium?
I agree with you on that. If you have a podium like Monza, you need to have the fans like Monza. And they didn't let them in. But it felt flat. It's okay. I mean, they could have done a much better job with that. But the cool-down room looked cool. I mean, it finally felt like a luxury place to be. Normally, it's just like a small quarter allocated next to the podium. Now it felt like a room to be. I mean, I wanted to be there. Look at the way... I know we're not with three grown men talking about interiors in a racing podcast, but that looked good. The sofas were incredible. The lighting was good. They had a big enough screen for you to rewatch the race. Everyone was nice and chill, not cramped into a Rolls Royce. Honestly... yeah, that is the way you want to end your season, no?
Of course, Las Vegas and Abu Dhabi, the most expensive race you can attend and the most expensive circuit you can go to. And obviously, these are the two races where there's a lot of glitz and glamour and fireworks and everything. So sure.
Actually, before we end the episode, we also need to talk about a couple of other things. Sundaram Haas have made some sort of an achievement this time. What is it, though?
They finished 10th? Is that what you mean?
Repeating history.
No. In all seriousness, the fact is that Haas has scored 12 points this year. That's the most a team finishing last has scored ever since this point system started in 2010.
Amazing. It's good to see that teams are then at least all scoring a few points here and there. But we've all spoken about what we'd like to see from Formula 1 in 24 as well. Gentlemen, one last thing to wrap from our last race review of the year. When we say last race review of the year, we mean it. There's going to be so many more episodes. So don't think this is the end of us by the end of the year. But what do you think is your concluding note for the on-track action, Kunal, for this year?
Well, I still think that teams clawing back aerodynamic performance has seen cars become difficult to follow, overtake, and so on. I mean, qualifying is still the one session to watch. So if you have friends you want to introduce to Formula One, make them watch qualifying. I think we have had just 2 front row lockouts this year. It was Red Bull at the opening race in Bahrain and then Ferrari in Mexico City. Literally every other race, there's been no front race. That's my daughter coming to say, Papa, you have to say good things about Formula One. It's incredible. But I think at the end of the day, just give them more equal cars, make it more fun in some way. I don't know. They've had these rules about sliding scale aero, budget caps, making things as constant as possible. None of that is working for some reason, and now this is where Tom is like, you should have just said this at the start of the episode, not at the end. But I don't think this is the most exciting formula of Formula One that should be. Probably that's all I have to say.
Yeah, let's wait and see. Let's wait and see what 24 is like. But folks, thank you for supporting us all the way through for all the on-track stuff in 2023. Genuinely, it's been a crazy year. We've had so many guests. We have, as we've constantly mentioned, we are going to have more and more of them coming to the podcast in the very recent, in the very near future as well. So seriously, it's been a bumper year for the Inside Line F1 podcast. There is going to be a lot more. There are going to be more episodes before 2023 ends. But also a note on all of the people who have attended our in-person live events. Seriously, we're so grateful that you choose to spend your Sunday evenings with us. It means so much that you're able to take out 3 hours of your time every single race weekend to just come be there with us and talk about the races. It's amazing that Siddharth Sundaram and myself, and also sometimes we've had a few guests join in as well. People like Abhishek Takle, who've been a great, great support for us to go out there. So huge thank you to you folks, firstly, for attending. A huge thank you to our partners who've been all around, including Social and Binge Pod Studios as well, for making this happen. And if you are going to be in Mumbai next year, join us. It's going to be a ton of fun. Not just Mumbai. We're planning to bring this to other cities as well. So be right here on this journey with us. But on the very end, folks, thank you for making 2023 so awesome. And we'll be back with more episodes, starting off with Daryl Goodrich on the Inside Line F1 podcast. Stay tuned for that, folks. We'll be right here. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Inside Line F1 podcast. Before we ended, I just wanted to say a huge thank you to Amazon Music once again for partnering with us on this episode of the podcast.